All right, guys. Thank you for joining me this Friday morning. Today, I want to just talk about how to set more listing appointments. For those of you who don't know me or haven't met me yet, my name's David. I got in the business the day I turned 18. I'm 19 now, almost 20, so almost 2 full years in the business. The first year in my real estate agent career, I was able to generate a six-figure income, and this year I'm on track to do even better. And it's all from prospecting, outbound prospecting, reaching out, talking to people, setting the listing appointments, meeting people, getting face to face, and getting the listings. I've operated my business focusing solely on listings instead of buyers. I think listings are how you run a scalable business as a real estate agent. So this entire Zoom meeting is just focused on how to set more listing appointments, the mindset going into it, dialing and actively calling people. You're able to really control your business and go after the people. And it's very numbers based. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to interject at any time. But as of right now, I call all the for sale by owners, all the for rent by owners, and all the expired leads. And there are 117 active for sale by owners all around Mentor. So it's about a 45-minute radius. So it's like 117 potential listings, and all their numbers are free, online, ready to go to call. I mean, it's like 3-4 years worth of business, and there's about 3 to 5 fresh ones coming on market every single day. So I recommend starting with calling for sale by owners initially, and you can add on to expires. I think expires are a great pillar to the business that certainly should be added, but for sale by owners, you can call right after this meeting. The number one thing I've been coaching agents recently, and the number one thing I see people miss out on is they're not really providing value to the client or the proper value. Their calls go something like, "Hey, just curious if you're open to listing with me," and there's really no value given to them. There's no why as to why they should list with you. So when I call for sale by owner, for example, I am focused on what is their pain points, what do they actually want, and how can I solve that? So typically for sale by owners care about two things: how quickly they can get their home sold, the timeline that they can sell it, and more importantly, they care about what they're going to net at the end of the day. All right. Yeah. So again, 117 for sale by owners. You want to prospect them. There's 3 to 5 fresh ones coming on the market every single morning. Actively call them, whether you have 15 minutes, 20 minutes every other day. It takes me 20 minutes roughly to be able to set an appointment if I have good contact rates with the for sale by owners. So, you don't have to, I block out every single day, 2 hours a day, 6 days a week of prospecting, focusing on that pillar of my business, generating leads, generating income. I think that's the most important part of the business. Can everyone hear me all right? Still?
Yeah, we hear you just fine, David.
Okay, perfect. I just want to make sure. So I that's how I focus my business. Again, for sale by owners are a great place to start if you haven't prospect before, because they're free right on Zillow and you can hand out them. The value thing, you always want to be providing value, focusing on the prospects' pain points, what they actually want. For sale by owners is going to be different from expired, and expired different from for rent by owner. So for sale by owners really care about what they're netting at the end of the day. They didn't go with a realtor because usually almost 98% of the time they don't want to pay the commission. So if you can focus your entire call when talking to this prospect on how you can net them more, whether that's the high level strategic marketing, and you can really paint their house in the best light, and you can sell it for more based on these comps. That's typically how my calls go for sale by owner. Now, if they're wildly overpriced, it's going to be, it's going to take a few calls of building rapport, talking to them, and trying to say, I can net you the most amount of money, not more, but the most amount of money. For an expired lead, you want to, throughout the call, figure out why the house didn't sell. Ask some questions like, did your last agent give you any feedback as to why the house didn't sell? And then that way you can figure out what their pain points are and provide value solely on their pain points, because that's all they care about. So again, value is huge. No matter who you're talking to, when you're talking to them, figure out what they actually want. I've been coaching agents recently, and they call and they just say, "Hey, I'm seeing, I noticed your house has been on the market 30 plus days, seeing if you would be open to working with me." There's no why as to why you're the agent that they should pick. There's no benefit to them. It's, they're getting hundreds of calls a day from realtors saying that, and there's just no actual need to work with you. But if you're talking to them, building rapport and providing value and solving all of their problems, it's, I don't want to say it's easy, but it's very simple to set the appointment by the end of the call. What you never absolutely want to do is you never want to pitch to people, give this sales pitch, this these one-liners that are going to get people to list with you. I have a very soft approach when it comes to sales. I don't corner people in these word traps as to why they should work with me. I don't like force them into a yes. I know some agents that do. I won't mention their names. I've worked with a couple of them. And what ends up happening is maybe they get the listing, but the client is extremely unhappy. They feel trapped. They feel like it wasn't their decision, and it doesn't lead into getting business repeatedly from that client or their friends and family, which is ultimately the gold mine of this business. You get the lead once, you get all their sphere, you get them in 5 to 7 years when they move. I mean, that's the gold mine of how to run a scalable business as a real estate agent, in my opinion. So never pitch to people, don't corner them. You want to make it feel like it's their decision to work with you. And you do that by providing them value and actually giving them, solving all of their issues, actually giving them something of value when you come to the table. So again, examples of value. When I talk to a for sale by owner, I'm always focused on, as I'm calling them. So I just hand dial straight from Zillow. I'm immediately copy and pasting their address into the MLS. I'm seeing what's sold around them. And I might use lines while I'm building rapport with them, like, hey, did you see the house on Main Street that sold at 330? You're only asking 300. Would you be open to meeting with me just so I can see how that house compares to yours and see if it even makes sense for us to work together, if I can net you more? It's a very soft way of asking for the listing appointment. That's tough to say no, because you're giving them information, which is valuable. You're telling them that a house down the street sold for more, and you just want to see if it can happen to their house. So a very value-based approach when I talk. I like the softer approach. It's a lot more pleasurable for me to call like that, and people tend to like me a lot more. The second one is seeing how homes compare to theirs. That's a great one when you're following up with a prospect. Maybe they're not ready now, but 3 to 6 months from now, before I call that prospect, when I'm following up, I don't call them and just say, hey, seeing if you're open to listing with me now, or seeing if you're open to putting the house on the market. I will call them and give them a piece of information, whether that be, a lot of people's issues right now are interest rates. Maybe I give them an update on where interest rates are heading, where they're at, because a lot of homeowners don't really know what's happening with interest rates. They just hear these headlines. So I'll provide them value that way. I will pull up a house that sold recently that just went under contract, whether it's for more than what they want or less. I'll just talk to them about that house and say, hey, did you know Sue sold her house in less than 7 days at this price? Would you be open to see how your house compares to hers and see what we can do for you there? Or, another example is just sharing this new grand marketing plan that you have that might be able to boost their house. So, I can't hone this in enough. It's a complete mindset shift. In my opinion, you really want to focus on not, when I call a prospect, I'm not focusing on what I want, which is the listing and the commission. I'm switching my mindset to what do they want? What do they need? How can I be there to solve it? And then getting the commission at the end of the day is easy. So provide value. It's the biggest thing. I can't hone it in enough. The next thing, this is more of a psychological aspect to the conversation. It's removing the threat of the meeting. A great book I recommend everybody to read, not just realtors, but everybody should read this book, is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. I was talking to Mark about it a couple of days ago. It's one of the greatest books I've ever read. I read it probably once every 3 months. And it really hones into how to effectively communicate with people to get what you want, to provide them the most value and everything like that. So you really want to give the prospect the illusion of control. So I'll use words like, I just want to see if it makes sense for us to meet, because now you're giving them that, hey, if it doesn't make sense, I'll walk out, I'll get out of your hair, no issue there. I just want to see if it makes sense. Using words like fair, that's something Chris Voss really dials in his book, Never Split the Difference. No one wants to think that they're being unfair or treated unfairly. So you just ask them, does that sound fair to you? Using lines like, you can decide if it makes sense to move forward or not. You really want to push off that threat of the meeting, not, hey, when I show up there today, I expect ink on paper. You just want to see if it makes sense, if it makes sense to even work with each other, if you want to work with this client, if they want to work with you. So you really want to give them that control of meeting them. It's going to make people a lot more comfortable, calm around you. And it's not pressuring at all. It's very, I want you to come to this decision. I know my value. I know I have the best thing on the market for you. I know you can't pick a better realtor than me. And I want to see if you can, if it makes sense for us to work. That's kind of the mindset I have when I talk to a client. They can't get a better agent than us, Platinum. I mean, they can't. So that's how I communicate. And that confidence really shows off when I'm talking to them. Another thing I really like to do, and this has helped me a lot, is push off the threat of the listing appointment. So if you guys haven't seen my For Sale by Owner script, this is a huge line that I use in that script. And I'll post this on YouTube and you guys can get it through the link there, or I can send it to you directly. But what I'll say is, worst case scenario, if the house doesn't sell in the next month or two, are you open to working with an agent at that point? So I'm saying in the next month or two. I don't even think it's going to happen now, but in the next month or two, Are you open to meeting with me? This is really pushing off that threat of a listing appointment, because they're getting 50 calls a day of, hey, do you want to meet with me to list your house? I'm pushing that off. Hey, if it doesn't work out for you, just seeing if you'd be open to it in the next month or two, in the next 6 months, whatever the timeline is. That's how I really push off that threat, kind of calm the client down to set the appointment sooner. So I highly recommend Never Split the Difference. Another book, if you guys like to read it, is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. These two books have 10x my business. I luckily read them when I was 17, very young in the business. And it's what I believe made me the agent that I am today. And the other thing is, a lot of you haven't known me for a while, but when I was 17, I was probably the most socially awkward kid around. So it's not like I was born with this gift of communicating. I was incredibly socially awkward, did not know how to communicate. No one in their right mind would think that I would be a salesperson, a good realtor. But I got there by reading, by tracking all my numbers, seeing what works, what didn't work, and just trying to hone in on my skills every single day, focusing on learning, growing, and whatnot. So if you feel like you can't, I'm just not good at communicating with people in that way. I certainly wasn't, and in a very short period of time, reading those two books helped me out exponentially, tracking all my numbers, seeing what works, what doesn't work, when I communicate like this, how does that work, and really just throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks, and focusing on that. So don't think, if I just get so uncomfortable calling. Don't everybody is. I used to call in my car when I was all alone so no one would hear me. So don't think it's some born gift. It takes work, it takes studying, it takes learning, and just growing your skills. We'll go to the next one. The other thing is follow-up is huge. When I coach a lot of agents, they think, especially because what I post on my YouTube channel, I post the calls where I'm getting the listing appointment at the end of the call. Most of my calls don't go that way. Most of my calls, I'm building rapport, I'm generating a lead. A lot of my calls do go that way, but I would say the vast majority that tracked my numbers, 68% of my listing appointments that are set are all in the follow-up. So luckily we have a great tool, KV Core, it's just that CRM system that allows us to make sure no leads slip through the crack, that we're able to follow up with them. So focus on building rapport, building a connection with the client. If you can set the listing appointment on the call, certainly do so. But if not, it's not the end of the world. You generated a fantastic lead, and now you just put them in your follow-up. And again, going back to the first slide, providing them value is huge. So don't just call them and ask them, hey, I'm just seeing if you're ready to listen. I noticed you haven't sold it yourself yet. That's, you're almost attacking them that they haven't sold themselves. They're going to get defensive, and you don't want that. You want to call them solely on providing value. So again, for sale by owners, when I follow up with them, it's about a house that's sold nearby. Expired, it might be the same thing. It might be interest rates if I'm talking to another buyer that's worried about that. So whatever their pain point is, I will follow up with them in a way to provide information and value towards that. And just over time, it's, I'm the agent that's giving them all the information, and solving their problems, not even about their house. I'll solve issues like, yeah, our house is just really dirty. Oh, I got a great cleaning lady that can come by next Tuesday if you need her. Solving all of their issues, not just specific on selling their house for the most amount of money, but all of their problems, so that you are the person of choice when they do decide to work with somebody. You absolutely need to have a follow-up strategy to keep you top of mind to the client. KV Core is, I've tested out a few different CRM systems. I used to use Boomtown. Follow Up Boss is another one. KV Core is hands down the greatest CRM system I've used. Their tools that they have in there, if you just play around, they're exceptional tools that make it super easy for you to quickly follow up with somebody, provide them all the value. You do listing valuation, market updates, listing presentation through KV Core. I mean, it's a great tool to have. And every lead that I put in, I get it's like 1.75 leads a day. So about 1 to 2 leads every single day I'm uploading to my database, and those are listing leads from prospecting. I have a task assigned to every single one. So I know, next Tuesday I'm following up with Sue, next Thursday I'm following up with Bob, and I'm following up with them specifically on X, Y, and Z, telling them about interest rates, telling them what a house sold nearby, seeing if they're ready to sell. So having a follow-up strategy is massive, especially in the climate we're in right now with the real estate market, where everybody's, there's a lot of turmoil. People don't know what's going on. I think it's a great market, but headlines are scaring clients away from doing anything. So people are just freezing up. If you have a follow-up strategy to consistently give them information when they're ready to list with you, because they have to come to that decision, you're going to call them, or they're going to call you. instead of another agent. So always have value with them. Again, I keep going back to that, but it's a point that has exponentially grown my career. What you don't want to say, and I've heard this before with plenty of agents, is, hey, I'm just following up, seeing if you're ready to sell. Again, there's really no why. Why should they meet with you? What's the benefit of selling through you? You want to give them a solid reason as to why they should meet with you, and just understanding the prospect's pain points. So no matter what it is, you want to write down their motivation. You want to track what it is, the issues that's keeping them from selling, and you want to sit there and spend some time on figuring out how exactly you can solve that. So that's been the key things that have set me massive amount of listing appointments. This week alone, I've set 7 listing appointments. Or no, sorry, last week I set 7 listing appointments. This week I've set 3. This month I've set 18 listing appointments, and that is all from prospecting consistently 2 hours a day. If anybody has any questions, and that's pretty much all I got. I can, if anything comes to mind, I'll let you know, but that's pretty much all I got. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to interject with me.
You know what, David, you had sent, the last call we did, the Zoom call, you had sent over, I think I screenshotted it, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm not sure if you have a PDF of your time block and what that looks like. Your
Yeah,
time block schedule. Would you mind sharing that again or emailing
yeah,
it over?
I can share that. I have my old one. I just switched. Let's see how I can get out of here. Should be in my Google Docs. If I can't find it quickly, I can explain what it is. So yeah, I'll just explain what it is. So I can send over a PDF to everybody as well that joined the meeting, but how I block out my time, I've switched it up a little bit because I'm trying to focus on more coaching and building my YouTube channel, everything like that. But how it was for 2 years up until last week was 8 to 10, I am outbound prospecting. I set it for the morning, so no one bothers me. A lot of agents aren't getting up at that time. So 8 to 10, I am actively prospecting. I start off with the fresh expired leads. I move on to the for rent by owner leads, and then the for sale by owner leads. And I call that from 8 to 10. 10 to 12 is when I do all of my lead follow-up. So this is that follow-up right here where I am, I have about 20 to 30 people a day that I have to follow up with just because I'm generating 1 to 2 listing leads every single day. So I have about 20 to 30 people with tasks assigned to them. So I will, from 10 to 12, call them. 12 to 1:30, I take a break, go to the gym, eat some lunch. 1:30 to 3:30 is all of the, 1:30 to 3 is all of the, kind of the administrative tasks, lender follow-up, making sure all my tracks are in order, or all my deals are in order, making sure everything's going to get to close, dealing with all the emails, putting out all the fires. This is when I let myself get sidetracked. And then 3 to 5:30 is when I do listing appointments. And I set all, if I'm running buyers around, that's when I do that. That's when I meet with people, is from 3 to 5 o'clock. Is that what you were asking about? Did I?
Yeah, you had this like kind of a chart up and I thought it was interesting. I was going to try to, fill it
Yeah.
into according to what works for my schedule. But yeah, that's what I was asking. And the other question I had is, what is your biggest challenge in rejection? What's the number one rejection that you struggle with, or do you not?
Oh no, I do. Yeah, no, I certainly struggle with objections. The number one objection as of right now is just, we want to wait till next spring. That's kind of what I'm feeling out, which isn't the worst thing in the world, because I know my spring is going to be a killer time, because I'm generating so much leads right now that are ready in the spring that it's going to be killer in the next year. So it'll just be out in the future as long as I do my proper follow-up. But that's been my biggest objection. And how I overcome that is I never ever try to convince somebody of something that they don't want to do. If I can solve their problems, I do that. That's how I handle all objections. So whether it's, hey, I think we're going to list with our previous realtor, I'll figure out, well, let's see what did they do wrong. There was a reason it didn't sell. And then I'll figure out why it didn't sell and see if I can solve those issues to set up a meeting. So I don't have these like one-liners as to how to overcome everything. I just focus on solving all the issues, and the business has come after that. That's kind of how I focus on any objection at hand. I don't just have this automatic response in me. I have I've built rapport. I know what the pain points are, and I just hone back into that. And I'll say things like, would it make sense for you to just meet 15, 20 minutes so you have all the options on the table? Things like that. So the biggest objection right now is waiting till next spring or something like that, which again isn't the worst thing in the world. And I just make sure I follow up with them until they're ready.
Yeah, I'm seeing that myself this spring, and we're gonna wait and see. And yeah, I get that a lot. Okay,
Which
thank you.
again, yeah, it's not the worst thing. I mean, you're gonna have a killer spring as long as you do the proper follow up and you make sure you're the agent of choice. What the issue is they say, wait until spring, and people will just set a task for spring. So they don't hear from you till, now, end of October till March. And in that meantime, you're getting agents like myself who are contacting them between then and doing the follow up and doing the constantly providing them value, whether it's bi-weekly, every week, whatever you can feel it out per person. And then that's how they lose that business. But if you're the one doing that, whether it is spring or next month, you'll be the person they call. So it's not the worst objection in the world. Does anybody else have any specific questions that I can help answer?
So David, I thought it was very helpful on the last meeting, and we do have a recording that I know Andrew's going to get that up on Facebook from that meeting, but if it's not already. And a lot of these calls, these Zoom calls are already up on our Success at Platinum website. That's our agent website, so that you can get all things Platinum there. But training is one of them there. You sign in and you can go and look at the different YouTube videos. But the thing that I found really interesting on that last call, David, that we had with you was seeing just the numbers that you posted of, how many calls it took to get an answer, how many answers it took to get an appointment, how many appointments to actually get the listing. One of the things I was going to mention, and this could be helpful for everybody, we get put off a lot, especially in Florida, when we make calls because of season. Where Northeast Ohio, yeah, the winter's not the greatest and people do wait till spring, but houses sell like crazy in the winter here because there's less houses on the market. Even with the low inventory now, there's even less in the winter. And so it makes those houses that are on the market worth even more. So I can tell you that what I would do if I were you guys, and that's what we do in Florida. I apologize for the background noise, but what we do in Florida is we are able to say to them, is it okay if we just come by for a quick tour of the house? I know you're not going to be ready till spring, but I'd like to see it so I have an idea of exactly all the features of the house. In case we get a buyer between now and then, I can give you a call and let you know. That, coupled with getting in front of them right away so that they know you from the phone call, they like you because you've gotten in front of them and you've made them like you. And now come spring, if they're going to wait till spring, they're more likely to list with you than if you've just had a phone call with them. So better to try and get in front of them now while the house is, show ready. They just came off the market or they're for sale by owner and they've been showing it. Now is a better time to say, what, let me just take a quick tour. It'd only take, 5, 10, 15 minutes, just so I know the house. And then if I do get a buyer between now and then, I can always call and see if it would be, a convenient time for me to show it. The other thing to do is get them on a system like KV Core or HomeBot that drips on them about their value and that is coming from you, along with a newsletter of what's going on in the market, what the interest rates are. Like David said, and he's very, very, it's very good information from him on that, is you cannot just put them in your tickler file, whether it's a software system or if you're using an old, recipe box with 3x5 cards. Both of them work if you use them, but not only are you going to cut the time in half, if they say spring, you're going to call them right after the first of the year, wish them a happy new year and see if they're still on track for spring, but you want to be touching them every other week or monthly until the spring, because you want to build that relationship of information. And like David said, solve their pain points, get to them and say, you know what, I have the solution for you. So whether it's you need it now or you need it in the spring, I'm that guy, I'm that gal. So sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there, but, and I love your numbers, David.
Yeah, that's the numbers you're talking about, right? What I have on screen right now. Right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. No worries. This month, as you see, 18 listing points, and this just helps me keep on track. I really, you need to track your numbers if you want to be, in my opinion, take it to the next level. Like take it from just a hobby where you buy and sell houses, or you help people buy and sell houses, to I'm an active professional in this business. Every professional knows their numbers, whether it's from sports to business. You got to know your numbers. So these are like the 4 metrics that I really like to track, and it just helps me break down. Like this month, I changed up how I've been dialing, and I got 6.4 contacts per hour, meaning every hour I talk to 6.4 people. Last month, when I didn't make that change, it was 6.2, or I think I made the change in September. So August was a little bit less than that, about 5.9. So it went up slightly, but a slight change. And over time, that 0.4, 0.5 people helps me out tremendously. I mean, the more people I talk to, the more leads I get, the more listing appointments I set, and ultimately, I get more listings that way. So tracking your numbers, trying new things, doing different things, is phenomenal. So that's one thing that I'm very analytical, and I'm very fortunate to be the way I am with how analytical I am. And it helps me keep on track to make sure I'm doing everything right. Does anybody else have any questions, concerns, if they're prospecting, anything that consistently comes up when dealing with, for sale by owners, expireds, for rent by owners, where to get the leads, anything like that?
Let me just add real quick, you guys. I don't want to jump in, but if somebody has questions, I definitely want them to ask David. Think about this and keep this in mind. We're going to lose probably 100 to 200,000 realtors nationwide in the next 6 months, right? That's not because of the end of the year and because of dues and fees coming up. Already 50% of the agents, of the 1.6 million agents or 1.5 million that we're down to, half of those never sell a house every year. So half of those agents never sell a house. The other half that do sell a house, they average 4 houses a year. So if you dial it down to the people that are doing what David does, those are the people that make money that are going to stay in the business. But what I can tell you in the next coming months, if you don't prospect and if you don't get listings, no matter what happens with buyer agency and buyer, commissions, any of that, notwithstanding, even if that stayed the same, you're still going to be out of business if you don't focus on listings and you don't get yourself prospecting. And prospecting doesn't have to be calls, but it has to be prospecting. And so there are different ways to do it. You could do it through social media. You can do it through advertising, pay-per-click, Google business pages. There's so many ways to do it. There's not anything you can't find on YouTube, like David's channel. So calling is the best and the fastest. So Lab Coat Agents and some of the different groups on Facebook have all been posting questions on, if I needed to get a listing today, what would you do? And it's interesting to hear those answers because it's consistently what David's talking about. For sale by owners, expired listings, for rent by owners, those are consistently what's coming up. Your sphere of influence. And that's what we've been pounding over and over every Tuesday in the Lions Listing Initiative. Different ways to approach them, different things to do, but you have to get comfortable with prospecting. And it does mean making outbound calls, at least in part, to everything else that you're doing. So sorry, I'll let you guys.
Oh, no, completely agree. Yeah, I focus on prospecting as like two different, there's outbound prospecting and inbound prospecting. And, the inbound prospecting is like social media marketing, which I think is great to have on, as a tool if you do it properly, which I think a lot of people don't do it properly, but I've seen it done very well. And it's something I lack massively. And I'll be honest, I strictly focus on making the calls, and it's something I definitely should add to my business. But inbound prospecting is marketing where people are coming to you, which is great. If you can build a system and a marketing plan that does that. Outbound prospecting, I just find to be the simplest, the quickest. It's very uncomfortable to make the calls, and the only way it gets more comfortable, more natural, is just by doing it consistently every single day. So now, like I said before, I used to hide in my car making the calls so no one would hear me, and now I post it on YouTube channel for anybody to see. It's just because I've done it 6 days a week for the past 2 years, 2 hours a day, and I've gotten more comfortable over time. So even if it's not the greatest calls or they're not super comfortable right now, that's how it starts out, and it gets way, way, way easier. And I think it's I know it's the number one way to build a business, just by, me as an example. So if anybody ever has any questions, wants to do, one-on-one calls, I've been doing a lot of, over the weekends where people from Platinum will come in and listen to me make calls. If anybody wants to do anything like that with me, I'm happy to make calls in person with you and, just workshops and things. So you just reach out directly to me for that. But yeah, if there's any questions, always feel free to ask.
You guys, I can tell you that in studying some of the wealthiest people on the planet, one of the things you'll recognize about them is they know how to win friends and influence people. They know how to get people to know them, like them, and trust them. And that's how they became wealthy. So it doesn't matter what business you're in. You have to be in the business of sales, and you have to be able to prospect. So real estate's no different. But what's great about real estate is the barrier to entry and the cost per year of your license to maintain it is very, very low compared to any other business you can get in. And there's people on the call that can tell you Nicole Joe Wright's run a successful business and salon for years, but she will tell you that it's expensive to have employees and to pay rent and to, keep the lights on and pay the utilities. So there's a barrier to entry of almost every other business that is huge compared to real estate. And when you compare that barrier to entry, like what she might make on a salon or what you'd make in a restaurant or a bar, and how much money you have to invest in the beginning, compared to what you can earn per year, there is no business. And I will say this confidently. There's not a business that you can bring to me that I have seen in my 33 years after college that will make more money with less barrier to entry than real estate sales. There just is. David, as an 18-year-old, made $100,000 his first year. Me as a 21, 22-year-old made over $100,000 my first year. And if you take that to today's, that's about 190,000 with inflation today. So it is possible, but I didn't see any hurdles. I didn't see any barriers. It's the same thing with David. He hasn't learned any bad habits. He hasn't seen any barriers yet. Will he face some? Yes. And as he builds his team and as he builds his sales force and his production level, he'll see barriers. He'll face barriers, but he'll be equipped to overcome them because he's taken the time to train himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's the greatest business, and the two biggest books. If you guys are gonna do anything after the call, Never Split the Difference and How to Win Friends and Influence People have, I think, made my career completely, on top of the mentorship that I get, obviously. But those two books are, in my opinion, the greatest communication books I've personally ever read so far. So, yeah, just wrapping it up, I think providing value, number one thing, tracking your numbers, making sure you know what's going on, and making the outbound call, whether it's comfortable or not. If you do it every day, whether it's 30 minutes, 2 hours, whatever you can fit in, you're gonna see results. I think there's like a stat I saw online. If you're the worst, statistically, if you're the worst salesperson in America, if you prospected 2 hours a day, you would get a listing a month. And that's statistically if you were the worst sales person in America. So it's a numbers game at the end of the day, and you will hone in your skills. So that is what I will leave you guys with, unless you guys have any other questions.
David, I want to thank you for taking your personal time to do this for the company. And I think it just shows what a family we are at Platinum and how we're willing to help each other. So thank you for being a part of it.
No, appreciate you guys. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Reach out to me directly if you want to do any type of one-on-one calls together, and we'll make it happen. All right. Appreciate you guys. Have a good one.
Thank you for everything.
Yep.
Thanks,
Thank you.
David.
Of course. Bye now.